Hi, welcome back to The Teacher's Promise. Once again, I'm your host, Brett Hansen, and I'm honored to help celebrate some wonderful educators. This week we have a kind of a special short episode, our first of a series of funny stories from teachers who have already been on as guests. This week we're going to listen to Amanda Spude's hilarious story about a middle school science experiment that got a little bit linguistically out of hand. Fortunately, the students didn't really catch on, but I think most of you will understand exactly why she told the story. So this one is called the Tootsie Pop Lick, and it, as I said, was an experiment in a middle school science class. So I hope you enjoy it. And make sure you come back next week when we'll have the first half of a spectacular episode with 3 performing arts teachers who just recently put on a spectacular version of The Addams Family. I'll share a little bit more about that at the end of this episode. So let's enjoy Amanda's story now.
Oh, goodness. So if you teach middle school, you know, I'm just going to say it. We have some quirky moments. So I teach 6th grade, and I think I said this earlier. Whenever I tell people I teach 6th grade, I kind of get like ooh, really? Like, kudos to you. I think it's the perfect age. So, elementary, it's a little bit more needy, right? Lower elementary. By the time they get to 8th grade, I taught 8th grade. By the time they get to 8th grade, they're kind of too cool for you a little bit. So I really think 6th grade is just kind of that happy medium. They can do a lot of those things independently. They still think you're really fun and cool, right? So I have so much fun with our 6th graders.
Well,
I love them.
I have to tell you, my high school students think I'm so cool. It's impossible to measure. They just love Mr.
you.
Hansen's the coolest. So yeah, I know what you mean.
Hey, I had Mr. Hansen as a teacher, and I'm not going to do this on air, but I can still recite your Robert Frost poem.
I'm ecstatic to hear that, so.
Okay, so my funny story. So I teach 6th grade science, and in the beginning of the year, I teach experimental design. So independent and dependent variables and how to really have a valid experiment. So one of the things that we talk about is having what is called a constant in an experiment. So for example, I always use the example in class, let's see if chewing gum helps you focus better on a test. So we'll have everybody take a test, and then half of you will chew gum and half of you won't, and we'll kind of compare and see if we have any difference in our results. But then I give the example of, if you on this half take an 8th grade math test and you guys take a 4th grade math test, what's wrong with that? And the students all say, well, you can't do that because they're 2 different tests, and then the person or the people who do the 8th grade test are not going to do as good, right? So that's a constant. You'd have to have the same math test to make it a valid experiment. So we were just doing a really fun experiment in the beginning of the year to teach this and practice this. So I decided to do an experiment on how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. And, I was going through pre-lab, and we were talking about what data we were going to record and how we were going to write it down. And a student raised his hand, and he said, Mrs. Spude, what if my lick is different than somebody else's lick? And I stopped for a second, and I said, okay, Max, you're right. I said, that's a good point, right? We need that to be constant. And he's like, well, yeah, what if I suck harder than somebody else sucks? And I thought about it, and I'm like, and none of the kids were laughing. They were being very serious about this. I was dying on the inside, and I was like, actually, you're right. We needed to define what one suck of a sucker is. So we spent, 5 minutes maybe of my class discussing of how to make our licks and our sucks of our suckers all the same. And I really wish I had another adult in the room at the time just to kind of feed off of, because, oh my goodness, I was just rolling, dying, laughing. And they were genuinely serious about it, and we kind of established what one would be, and then we did the experiment. But it's one of those where you go to lunch and you're like, oh my gosh, you guys, I have to tell you the story of what just happened. And it was pretty fabulous. I'll never forget it. Max was his name. And I was like, you know what, Max, that's a really great point, because we want it to be valid. So that's my sucker story.
Well, good job, Max.
Needless to say, I haven't actually done that. I've changed my intro experiment throughout the years, and I didn't do that one anymore after that.
Yeah. Better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
At the other end of the public school spectrum, by the time they're seniors, most teachers don't know why the students are laughing.
Oh, that's it,
so
right?
It is nice to be in the control.
And they're we have some moments where they're innocent, which is nice. And sometimes I say things and I kind of look around like, oh man, okay, but nobody laughed. I can keep going. They didn't catch it. So
it is a good age. I like
it.
Sixth grade.
Yes, it is a good age and a wonderful story. So thank you, Amanda, for sharing with us the Tootsie Pop Lick, how much of a suck experiment in the 6th grade. Only in public education and middle school would that not wind up being an Amazon Prime comedy special in the making. So thank you for joining us this week for this quick episode. And I want to please ask you to come on back next week when we hear from 3 spectacular performing arts teachers working together to create an amazing presentation, but more importantly, to create connections with students and talk about how the performing arts really give us another avenue into the students' hearts and to expand our own experiences as educators. So please remember to check out our Facebook group page and consider opening up that link to nominate an excellent educator. I'm running a little bit low on nominations, and I really want to share as many stories as I possibly can. If you aren't on the Facebook group or a part of the Facebook group, you can go to Hanson Education Services or theteacherspromise.com and click on the link, or just send me an email with the name and email address of someone you think should be on the show, an excellent educator who has a great story to tell. So once again, thank you very much for being an educator. Make sure you take care of yourself and have a great day.